Chapter 3 continues. When he awoke with a start, the sun was shining through his window. He waited for the pages and knights or the master of the wardrobe to come in and dress him for the day, but the castle was deathly still. He sat up in bed. His underclothing and armor were laid out for him. He realized at once that he was meant to dress himself. He jumped up in alarm. Something dreadful must have happened. He threw on his underclothing and armed himself as quickly as he could, with no one to help. I must find the king and offer him my service, he thought. But he wandered from room to room and could find no one. He yelled out as loudly as he could, but the sound of his own voice echoed in the empty air. Finally, he went out the great castle door, and there at the bottom of the steps stood his horse, saddled and bridled. Someone had propped his sword and lance against the sorrel's flank. By now, Parzival was more angry than concerned. He ran out into the courtyard, where he had been greeted so courteously the night before. It was as empty as the castle, but he could see that the grass had been trampled, as though many horsemen had mounted there not long before. He raced back to the sorrel and leapt into the saddle. The gate was open and the drawbridge down. He galloped across, and when he got to the end of the drawbridge, someone behind him yanked the cable so abruptly that Parzival was nearly thrown, horse and all, into the moat. Parzival turned back to see who had done this to him. There, standing in the open gateway, was the page who had pulled the cable, shaking his fist at Parzival. "May God damn the light that falls on your path!" the boy cried. "You fool! You wretched fool! Why didn't you ask the question?" "What do you mean?" Parzival shouted back. "What question?" Without another word, the page turned on his heel and disappeared. At once, the iron portcullis crashed down upon the stone pavement. Parzival was alone. There was nothing for him to do but to go forward, following the tracks of those who had left the yard earlier. Perhaps the king's men are engaged in a battle, he thought. I can join them and offer the service of this great sword that the king has given me. Maybe they think I am a coward, and that is why they despise me. He followed the tracks, riding hard, but the hoof prints began to split off, until at last they disappeared altogether. It was then that he heard the sound of a woman weeping. He followed the sound and found a young woman sitting against a linden tree, cradling in her arms the body of a knight which had been embalmed. At first, Parzival did not recognize her, for she had shaved her head and was dressed in the rough clothes of a peasant. "May I be of service to you, madam?" he asked. "No, no one can help me," the young woman said, "for I am grieving more each day. But where did you come from? This is the land of wildness, and not safe for travelers." "I came today from the castle called Wild Mountain," Percival said. "I passed the night there in some splendor." The young woman looked startled. "You must be jesting," she said. "No one comes upon Wild Mountain by chance. Only those who are meant to find it are brought to it. You are a stranger here. Perhaps you do not know, then, about King Afortus, the son of Fribitel." Parzival confessed that he did not know this king, and the young woman continued, "And Fortus is the oldest of 5 noble children. One is long dead, and 3 of them live on in misery. The 5th, Treversant, is a hermit who has chosen the path of poverty for God's sake, and Fortus, for all his wealth, lives in great pain. He can neither sit up nor lie down, neither ride nor walk. Even propped among his pillows, the agony is more than he can bear. If only you had been the one, if only you had seen him, you could have rid him of his suffering." "But I did see him," Parzival said. "I saw the king, and many wonderful and strange things there in Wild Mountain." "Why," she said, "you are Parzival. I did not recognize you in the armor of a knight. Do you remember me? I am your cousin Sigwin, whom you met on the road to Arthur's court. I told you your true name, and since that day you have been to Wild Mountain. Then tell me the good news. Tell me that the king is healed." "Can you be my cousin Sigwin? I didn't recognize you. You've grown so pale, and what has become of your beautiful hair? Come, cousin, let me help you bury this knight." "There is only one thing on earth that could ease my pain," Sigwin said. "Tell me that the king is released from his. I see his sword borne at your waist, dear cousin. The marvels you have seen are nothing compared to those that are to come. You if—" She looked up into Parzival's face. "If you ask the question." "What question, cousin?" Sigwin's pale face grew whiter still. I cannot believe it. You were taken to Wild Mountain. You saw the marvels of that place. You saw the Grail itself and the awful suffering of its king. And you did not ask the question. Parzival was alarmed by the change in his cousin's manner. What question should I have asked? Tell me, I don't understand. Get away from my sight! I can't abide to have you in my vision. You perfidious knight, she said. Have you no shred of compassion? The woman was wild with rage. You may live, but in the reckoning of heaven, you are already dead. Dear cousin, Parzival pleaded, please, I promise you, whatever I may have done, I'll make amends. Do you think to make amends of a night, the amends of a knight? She asked, her voice cruel with sarcasm. There is no amends for what you have failed to do. There is no longer need for you to follow the rules of chivalry. You were shorn of all knightly honor at Wild Mountain. Sigwin turned away from Parzival, her eyes on the pitiful figure in her lap. When she spoke again, her voice was so low that Parzival had to bend down to hear her words. I will not. I cannot say another word to you, she said. Go. My only hope in this world is that I will never again have to look upon your face. And that is the end of chapter 3.